It's Jeff Schmidt, and it's Tuesday night at 7 p.m. On with us is our very talented producer, Jill. She's going to be going through the questions with you. Tonight, we're going to cover off quite a bit. One was a write-in question, which I thought was pretty timely, actually. We'll cover that first. But also we have a lot of questions that were written in, a lot of questions we think we'll get in the chat box. But before we begin anything, let me begin with the standard disclaimer that's required by the state of New York. On this channel, many of the questions we cover here are nuanced. We do our best to answer them, but our responses are meant to be directional, not exact. Your situation may require more details than we can give on a live stream. This live stream is for educational purposes only. We haven't had the chance to speak with you one-on-one, so please treat this information as general guidance, not advice to act on. For anything specific to your situation, make sure you talk to a qualified professional. Now, before we begin, I want to note that, Jill, you have an old background in your background, and I've got a question for you, because you've been living in the gym, it looks like, for the last couple of weeks, and now you got the old background back. Is that a real background, or is that one of those, fake backgrounds? I'm just curious.
Well, neither background was fake, Jeff. The gym was real, and I am back in my home office. In fact, here, see, I can actually.
Oh, okay.
Favorites, Think Again by Adam Grant. So no.
All right. Very good. All right. Well, why don't we pass it over to you to lead the way, and then we can get right into the questions, because that's what everybody's here for.
All right, great. So just want to bring to you, Jeff, that we are getting a lot of gratitude in the chat box. Thank you for doing what you do. Everyone seems to appreciate that. Also, just a reminder to everyone, of course, we are taking emailed questions as well as your questions live. So do bring your questions about Social Security to this live stream tonight, and we will try to get to as many as we can. We are going to start from, as you mentioned, Jeff, a write-in question from Ben in Iowa. He is asking, will you please tell me if the Claiming Age Clarity Act, which passed through Congress, is a sneaky way to raise full retirement age?
All right. Well, this has been a question that's come up a lot here. It's come up in our actually on our videos and some of the comments, and even on our website, holyschmidt.com. First of all, just a clarifying point about the Claiming Age Clarity Act. I'm not sure I could say that 3 times fast, but anyway, it hasn't passed through Congress. It passed through the House of Representatives. For some reason, there's a myth out there that both the House and the Senate, i.e. Congress, has passed this act, and it's waiting to get signed by the president. It has not. In fact, it was passed through the House of Representatives on December 1st of 2025, and it's been with the Senate Finance Committee ever since. And for those of you that don't know what the Senate Finance Committee does, they're responsible for Social Security. They're responsible for Medicare, Medicaid, taxes. They're responsible for all the treasury functions in the country, funding the country, and trade policy. So when you're talking about the Senate Finance Committee, you're talking about a committee that, number one, is really powerful, and number two, is really busy, especially now. So it has not passed through Congress. It's passed through the House of Representatives. And so what is this bill that's sitting in front of the Senate right now? And what's everybody concerned about? Well, the bill is basically a naming bill. And what it means is, if you look at Social Security, every claiming age, at least at the ends and in the one point in the middle, has a specific term that the Social Security Administration uses. For example, the minimum benefit age is the new term for what was called the early eligibility age. Now, is that an important distinction? Maybe, but we'll talk about whether that's an important distinction because someone's trying to, or a group of people are trying to put something through Congress and put something through the American people. The current full retirement age would be replaced with the standard benefit age, and the maximum monthly benefit age would replace delayed retirement credits. And so basically, you've got new terms for the same thing. And the question comes up, why would you rename these unless you were trying to do something sneaky? Yeah, I mean, historically, if you look at some of the bills that have gone through, there's been some sneakiness. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle. A bill that goes through and has one name doesn't really have anything to do with that one name, or very little to do with that one name. You can look back in the last 50 years and it's been the same thing over and over again. We just are seeing it because we're living it live, and we have been for the last 20 years. So I would say that in this instance, probably not. Probably not. Let me tell you why. First of all, it was sponsored by one person from the Democratic Party, one person from the Republican Party. Aaron Bean is a Republican in Florida, and Val Hoyle is a Democrat in Oregon, and they co-sponsored the bill. It's supported by AARP. And so if you start to think about, or largely supported, I don't know if they've put the full weight of the organization behind it, but they've made positive comments about it, or at least not negative comments about it. They have commented about it, and the comments have been generally favorable. So I don't think that this is something people need to worry about. It could be wrong, but usually the stuff that gets put through that's sneaky, you usually have one side that has a very strong view, which is opposite of the other side. And so when you think about some of the legislation that's made its way through Congress and through various presidents, they made it through barely. Almost always they made it through barely, and the other side was very loud about not supporting it, but it made it through. Here, there are 2 or 3 things that people really need to focus on, in my opinion, and that is Social Security is a bipartisan, has bipartisan support. The Republicans and the Democrats both have said time and time again that they are here to support Social Security. They don't want cuts to Social Security, and they will defend Social Security. It's not like some of the other things that have gone through, and you have very different opinions depending on the party. So that, I think that's the big thing. Then the other issue is that, or the other point is that it started off as bipartisan support. Now, when you see anything go through Congress that has bipartisan support, you need to understand what's going on in the background. Things need to get done. When you're a politician, if you're not signing something into a law or vetoing something or voting against something, then you have a constituency that actually has an issue, and that you're either not supporting them or you're not defending them. So having something put through, even if it's just a naming change, is better than not doing anything at all. And you'll see a lot of this type of activity that most people don't ever hear about. And so this, if it gets passed by the Senate, I don't know if it will or not, but if it gets passed by the Senate and gets signed by the president, undoubtedly there will be an email coming out from the people who support it saying, hey, we're looking out for you. We want to make things clear. Does the bill have some valid points? Sure. Anytime you change the name of something and you make it either more clear or less clear, you're going to have a body of people that react differently to it. It's just human nature. So will calling the minimum benefit, will calling early eligibility age minimum benefit age change the view of somebody? Perhaps. Will calling full retirement age standard benefit age change the view of somebody? Perhaps. I would say that for the people who actually do the reading, probably not. But I would also tell you that there's a portion of the voter base that really just is very emotive in terms of how they vote. And so the same thing is true about how they make decisions on things like Social Security. There was a report that was put out that suggested, and I believe that this is true, that more people spend more time focusing on their next vacation than they do on which age to claim Social Security. And it's sad because it's a big decision for somebody, but if it's treated like something you throw on the table at the checkout stand, well, then you're not going to optimize, I suppose. Here, changing the words will undoubtedly change the behavior if it goes through. Whether it will change it for the people watching this live stream, I doubt it. For a large portion of you're watching a live stream about Social Security, you're educating yourself. But for a large portion of the population, they don't do it. So I think I wouldn't. This is Jeff Schmidt speaking. I wouldn't read too much into this. Number one, it still has to pass the Senate. Number two, it has support from both the Republicans and the Democrats. And number three, AARP supports, or at least doesn't negatively support it. It doesn't negatively decline the concept. They actually support the idea. So net, I don't think it's a huge deal. We'll see in 10 years, but there isn't really a scenario where this plays out and 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, someone comes back and they try to sneak an increase in full retirement age through. That just doesn't happen. You can't sneak that through. And you've got a voter base of 57 million people who are receiving Social Security. And if they had something like that snuck through, they'll vote. And 57 million people can change a lot of political lives for the worse if they make the wrong decision. So that's a long-winded way of saying, don't worry about it. I don't think there's anything there. I could be wrong, but a lot has to happen before it even makes it to the point where it gets to a vote in the Senate. The House or the Senate needs to, the Senate Finance Committee needs to support it first. I think that's about it. Why don't we get down to other questions?
All right. So Scott Holt has a question. He says, I will be 62 years old on February 3rd, 2027. When should I file to start my Social Security at 62?
February 2027. You can file as early as 4 months before you want to start receiving Social Security. The only point worth noting here, though, is that Social Security is paid in arrears. So if you start Social Security in February, you don't get your first check until March, and it's for the previous month. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your timing.
Okay, Stella is asking, I want to ask your opinion about starting to claim Social Security at age 63 to 64, because truly I'm not feeling good about waiting due to this administration.
So the question is, what do I think about claiming at 63, 64 because of the political climate? Well, I don't. So two things. This administration and the previous administration are both fully supportive. At least they've said they're fully supportive of Social Security, and they both said that protecting Social Security is sacrosanct. So let's take that and put the proper perspective on it. And there are polar views on a lot of things between the Democrats and the Republicans, but this doesn't appear to be one of them. The broader issue, I think, is the question that is being asked is what happens in 2032 or 2033? And this is when the trust runs out of surplus if nothing's done. And two things. One, there's a distinction here that needs to be made. It runs out of surplus. It doesn't become insolvent. People get the two confused all of the time. And insolvent means that the whole thing shuts down. Runs out of funds means that it's basically money in, money out. So people who pay into Social Security are paying the funds for the Social Security payment. And that means a haircut to people currently receiving Social Security. I think that's highly, highly unlikely. And I've said this many times on this live stream, and I'll give you a concrete example that we talked about many times, and that's 1983. There was a situation where the trust was 2 or 3 months from running out of funds, and there was a lot of political back and forth, just like there is with any election year or any political party, Republicans or Democrats. They try to make the other one look bad, and so there was a stalemate basically on protecting Social Security, and then there were seven people that got together, and seven congressmen got together, and they formed a committee and they pushed an amendment through. And that amendment basically raised the Social Security tax from 5.4% to 6.2%, and the same thing with the employer contribution. That immediately solved the funding issue. It didn't solve the fact that the bigger issue is that population growth was slowing even back then, and the funds were in the future projected to run out at a point in time. So they slowly raised full retirement age from 65 to 67, starting 17 years in the future. So anybody that was within 17 years of retiring still got 65. And then in 2000, it slowly crept up a month per year to age 67 next year. And so that was all done because Social Security is very important to the country. It's very important to families, and it's also very important to children of people on Social Security, because imagine what happens if mom and dad's Social Security payment gets cut by 28%, and that happens to 57 million people. All of a sudden, some really bad things happen. People are moving home, all sorts of horror stories about people who become homeless. I mean, the consequences are massive. So I think it's unlikely. Would I bet money on it? I bet a few dollars on it. I wouldn't bet my entire life savings, simply because I wouldn't bet my entire life savings on anything. But I'd say the odds are very, very low. So whether you take Social Security at 63, 64, or you wait, it should really be dependent on your specific situation. Are you healthy? Do you feel like you need funds earlier because you want to enjoy life more during your energetic years and you have enough funds for later? Are you worried on the flip side that you want to protect a survivor if you pass early and you need a higher survivor benefit? That would speak to pushing it out. There are a lot of things to consider, and so there's no single answer. But I will say that it is something that you should really consider in depth, and that goes for anybody when it comes to Social Security. It is, for a lot of people, it's the single biggest asset they have in retirement.
All right, great. So Sportsman 19X is asking, can you talk about Social Security's special earnings limit rule? Specifically, if a person retires mid-year but will not reach full retirement age that year, but has exceeded the annual earnings limit.
Yeah, sure. This is one that confuses a lot of people, and it's one that, if you actually sit back and you break it down to its basic components, it's not that confusing. Let's say that you were a world famous doctor and you made millions of dollars a year, and it came time to retire, and you decided that you were going to retire on December 31st. You'd have no issues, because as of January 1st, you'd have no income and you weren't being faced with an earnings limit. But most people don't retire on December 31st. They retire at a different point in time. They're either retired by their company, which is about 40% of people these days, unfortunately, or they make a decision because of a plan that doesn't involve going out on New Year's Eve and celebrating their retirement. So for most people, it happens somewhere in between. Because most people are faced with this issue, and the SSA knows this, they have a special first year rule, and that is until you start receiving Social Security, you don't have to comply with the earnings test. So the earnings test in a non-full retirement age year is $24,480 or $2,040 a month. But if you've already earned $24,480 and then you retire and start taking Social Security, you've already violated the test. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And so they put in place a first year rule, and that says until you start receiving Social Security, the test doesn't apply. And the first year only, they take that $24,480 and they divide it by 12. And so that's $2,040 per month. As long as you don't earn more than $2,040 per month in part-time income, I suppose, or whatever income you're talking about, you don't have to give any of the funds back to the SSA. If you go over that amount, month by month, it's measured month by month, then you have to give $1 back for every $2 over $2,040 per month in the first year only. And so people who had a really big income up until the time they retired, you don't need to worry about it. And it's measured every single month. So one month you may be over and the next month you won't. Typically, it doesn't really work out that way, though. I mean, to be frank, people, if they're going to be over, the data shows that they're continuously over. And by the way, you don't lose the money if you go over. You have to give it back. But once you reach full retirement age, your payment is grossed up. It's as if that difference that you gave back was not given to you in the first place, and it comes back to you in the form of a higher Social Security payment. So not a lot to worry about there in terms of your earnings or lack of earnings once you reach full retirement age, and not a lot, or sorry, once you apply for Social Security, and not really a lot to worry about if you haven't started receiving Social Security.
All right, so we're going to take a question that was emailed in today from Nick. He says, I have 2 young children, ages 3 and 6, and a much younger spouse who still works full time. Should I claim Social Security at 62 or delay? I also have a decent retirement account. Does this create a good Roth conversion opportunity?
So this is, we talk a lot on this channel about Roth conversions because done right, they're actually very powerful. Done wrong, they actually cost you a lot of money. And so we spend a lot of time educating people on Roth conversions. Conceptually, a Roth conversion works if the taxes that you pay today are lower than the taxes that you'll pay in the future. So if you're in the 12% tax bracket today, let's just say, and you can do a Roth conversion and pay either nothing because you don't earn a lot and you've actually put yourself in a position where your earnings aren't taxable simply by virtue of not the amount of money you're receiving isn't enough to be taxed after deductions, or it's at a low rate. So that is one data point. The other question is claiming Social Security at age 62 versus delaying. Well, the tax on Social Security is partially determined by that Roth conversion you're doing, because when you take out funds from your 401k or your IRA, that's a taxable event. And tax on Social Security is dependent on what your adjusted gross income is, which includes distributions from a 401k or an IRA, plus half your Social Security payment, plus any tax-free income, municipal bonds, basically. You add that all together, and your potential tax on Social Security, the odds go up. So there isn't a right answer here, unfortunately, without me having more data, but it is important for you to understand what the levers are, and those are the levers.
All right, so we'll take Tom's question as well that was emailed in, also along the lines of Roth conversions, which is I'm 63 and a half and my wife is 62 and a half. I maxed out Social Security over my career. My wife expects about $1,500 per month beginning November 2026. and I may retire from dentistry in the next few months after selling the practice and building. My advisor thinks we should claim Social Security sooner rather than later, but our savings place us in roughly the top 4% of retirees. Should we delay benefits, and is this a good Roth conversion window?
Well, if you are earning more than, if you're at the top in terms of Social Security, you also would have been pretty high up there in your tax rate. So it may be a good Roth conversion window. It depends on your tax rate once you retire. If you do too many Roth conversions, or you do too much in the Roth conversion realm, you're going to push up your taxable income, and the Roth conversion might start to become a wash. So the simple exercise, and you can actually go onto my website. I'm trying to remember. I have a calculator on my website, and I believe it's at holyschmidt.com/Roth conversion. And in fact, let me try it right now while we're talking, just to give you the actual URL.
I'm typing it in.
Well,
holyschmidt.com/Roth
conversion.
conversion. Oops, it's in all caps.
Let's see here. Yep. So the Roth conversion calculator. So it's holyschmidt.com RC calculator, and this is a good starting point for you. There's a big disclaimer at the bottom that says you can't rely on the information. All websites have that. It's important for that to be there because none of them actually have your specific information. But the first step is to go to holyschmidt.com/RC calculator and play with the Roth conversion calculator. And then once you've done that, talk to someone, a qualified professional, to help you with your Roth conversions, because it is something that, unless you geek out on this stuff like I do, you probably should get a second set of eyes on it.
Okay, let's go to a question in the chat box. Acontilus 1792. Welcome. This is her first time being able to be live. She has not been able to make this time. And she has a question. He or she, actually, if you claim before full retirement age but still work per Social Security, if your income exceeds a threshold, your benefits will be reduced. They say the benefits are not lost forever. Please explain how you get it back.
So they're not. It's sort of true that they're not lost forever, assuming that you have longevity. If you take two people and don't try this, by the way, but if you take two people and you have one person that takes Social Security at age 62 and another that waits until age 67, and the one at age 62 continues to work full time and they have to give 100% of their Social Security payment back, in theory, they've given everything back and their benefits should continue to grow, and they should look largely similar, identical, I don't know, to the person who waited until age 67. Why? Because you had to give it all back. The reason I say don't try this is because there's a lot of calculating going on. And so if someone is recalculating your Social Security payment every month based on the fact that you had to give 100% of it back, there could be some errors there. But conceptually, if you take Social Security at age 62 and your full retirement age is age 67, you're going to get 70% of your full retirement age Social Security payment. At age 67, you get 100%. But what happens if you retire at age 62 and you have to give all of your Social Security payment back because you've earned so much that you don't qualify to receive any of it because you've blown through that $24,480 per year? Well, at the end of the 5-year period, you should be the same. So that's what they mean by you actually get part of it back, or you actually get all of it back. The caveat, though, is that nobody knows what tomorrow holds, And if somebody was to pass unexpectedly at 68, it would have given back all their Social Security payment from 62 to 67 and only had 1 year of that increased benefit. So conceptually, yes, you do get it back. And if you make it to break even, then you get all of it back. And then if you make it to break even and then some, you do better. But it's not a check at age 67 where you get it all back. It's just an increased Social Security payment.
All right. Doug Byers is asking, I'm 66 next month. My wife is 68 next month. Neither of us has started taking Social Security. She still works, as do I. I'd like her to quit. She gets $2,200 when she starts. I, at 67, would get $3,300. Take it now or not?
Well, so I'm not sure if this question is, do you want me to support you asking your wife to quit, or if you're asking, should she take her benefit now or should she take the spousal benefit? So I'm going to take a stab at this. This goes back to that comment I made at the beginning. A lot of the questions are nuanced. There are a lot of reasons to take Social Security. The biggest one used to be, and the only one people cared about, was this chart that the SSA took down about 20 years ago, break even. And that chart basically showed that at a point in time, the chart showed, it was actually pretty cool. It showed it had the age on the horizon, and then it had the percentage of Social Security, your full retirement age benefit on the vertical. And where they converged was break even. And the typical chart showed 62 versus full retirement age. But you could also use that same chart and look at 63 versus 65 or 64 versus 70. And you could see where the break even was in a variety of different places. The problem with break even, it sounds like the beginning of a joke, but the problem with break even is that because there are a lot of elements to this decision, and I would even argue that one of the biggest isn't money. It might be protecting your wife, or in your case, or it might be your wife protecting you. I don't know, but there are a lot of elements to Social Security, and so making a decision based just on money is probably the wrong move for a lot of people. And so I think, Doug, you need to go back and look at what your objectives are. And if you're trying to extract every last dollar, look at your longevity, look at your partner's longevity. If you're trying to enjoy the go-go years of retirement because you've got a lot of energy and your wife does too, maybe you go earlier. If you're trying to protect your wife from something that we all go through at some point, unfortunately, then maybe you go later. But it really depends on your specific situation. Now, I always wish I had a better answer for this question, because it comes up a couple of times in every live stream in different ways. It comes up people ask about, well, should I enjoy my retirement years, or should I plan for what happens if I need long-term care and I need income to pay for it? I have a course called Social Security Simplified. It's a wonderful course. We have sold it to a lot of people, and candidly, we've only had 2 people in the entire time of the sale of the course that have asked for a refund. And this course comes with 100% money back guarantee in the first 30 days. And the reason I bring that up is because the course has a calibration tool. It asks 25 very specific questions to help you get a sense of what's important to you. And if you're interested in the course, go to hollyschmidt.com/social security, and you'll see the course landing page. And there's a lot of data about the course there. And if you go, we have a $60 off coupon called $60 off, or 60 off. It's 60 off. 60 off. Go to holyschmidt.com/social security, use the coupon code 60 off, and you'll get $60 off the course. And that's probably the single most important decision of your life. It's probably, at least of your retirement life in terms of money. And I would recommend you spend some time with it. The course takes about 5 hours to complete. So check it out.
I have put that link into the chat box for anyone that's interested in the course, Social Security Simplified. All right, Ron has a question emailed in. He's asking, I became a widower at 57 with 2 minor daughters and collected survivor benefits for them. I was forced into retirement at 59, and all 3 of us collected my late wife's survivor benefits. Her income was higher than mine. If I wait until 70 to claim my own Social Security, do I still receive 124% of my benefit? Or is there a reduction because I collected survivor benefits starting at 59? I'm currently 62 and have not remarried.
Yep. So there's no reduction for the survivor benefit. This is one of the few times that someone in the government did a stellar job in terms of understanding it and reading the room, so to speak. People often confuse the spousal benefit and the survivor benefit because they both go to the same person, which is the spouse usually. And so if you take the spousal benefit early, or if you take your own benefit early, if you're the spouse, and then later switch to the spousal benefit, there is a reduction in the spousal benefit, but not the survivor benefit. The survivor benefit has this unique feature where you can take either the survivor benefit or you can take your own benefit and then switch to the other later. And if you were to say in a perfect world where you are, let's say that your own benefits $2,000 a month and the survivor benefits $2,000 a month at full retirement age, you would always take the survivor benefit first. And the reason is because, not always, where's that disclaimer? You would usually take the survivor benefit first. And the reason is because your survivor benefit stops growing at your own full retirement age, whereas your own benefit continues to grow until age 70. And so all disclaimers on that, though, because I could probably construct a scenario where that didn't make sense, but most of the time anyway, it would make more sense. And so all things being equal, you take the benefit that stops growing at full retirement age, and you let the one that continues to grow until age 70 continue to grow.
All right, Lisa M668. I see you have written in the chat box, and there is no question, but I want to extend my deepest sympathies for your loss. And perhaps if there is a question at the end of what you've written in, you might want to email that one to Jeff, since it is a sensitive topic. Do you want to give you the email where she can reach you to get an answer directly from you?
Sure. First of all, in the subject line, put not for live stream, and then email me at livestream@holyschmidt.com. And then if it's one that I can answer, I'll answer it. If it's one that's very specific and I can answer it with a few questions, I'll send you back a few questions. If it's one that would require an in-depth conversation, I'll probably refer you to someone that can spend some time with you. But we're always happy to help, of course.
Yes, and once again, so sorry for your loss. All right, Michael Swami has a question. Is the first year rule aggregated? In other words, if on average I stay below the earnings limit, am I okay, or am I penalized for the months to go over, even if I overall don't violate the earnings test?
So first of all, Michael Swami, I recognize that name. He's the one that we couldn't get Ari's book to for some reason, right? We were having a hard time getting it to Michael.
Yes,
Is that right?
memory. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I
and,
that as
gang,
well.
for those of you who don't know, Ari is is our part of our Trusted Medicare Partner chapter. In fact, let me put their information up. Chapter is someone we send a lot of people to simply because they do such a wonderful job. If you have questions about Medicare, give them a call, 440-703-1224. And in fact, if you want a copy of Ari's book, all you need to do is email with the subject line Ari and send it to livestream@holyschmidt.com, and we will send you back a digital copy of Ari's book. We've sent out, I jokingly say we've sent out more books, more of Ari's books than Amazon.com, but literally I think we're probably in the thousands now, or certainly the high hundreds. And I'm sure Ari's book is a lot more popular than what we can generate on the channel, but it is a fun little data point. So if you want a copy of Ari's book, then send just his name, Ari, or Ari Parker, at livestream@holyschmidt.com, and we'll hit reply with a copy of his book. Speaking of Ari, he will be on with us next week. For those of you that want to ask in-depth Medicare questions, Ari will be here, and he'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So with all of that, I actually lost track of the question. So can you repeat it one more time?
Yes, let me just go right back to it. And that is Michael's question. Is the first year rule aggregated? In other words, if on average I stay below the earnings limit, am I okay or am I penalized for the months to go over, even if I overall don't violate the earnings test?
Unfortunately, you're penalized. So it is a month-by-month test in year one, and then it's a total year test from year 2 onward, up until you reach full retirement age, and then it becomes a different number. So if, for example, you earned $24,480 before you retired, and then you were earning some months $2,040 a month, which is $2,480 divided by 12, and some months $4,040. The months that you were over in year one, you would have to give back $1 for every $2 over, and that would come back to you in the form of a larger Social Security payment when you reach full retirement age.
All right, great. So Sportsman 19X has a spousal benefits question. If a primary earner begins Social Security before full retirement age, is the spousal benefit based on the amount the primary earner receives when they start collecting, or on the primary earner's full retirement amount?
Always the primary earner's full retirement amount. The spousal benefit, and this is a big point of confusion, because the survivor benefit is tied to the amount that the primary earner was receiving. The spousal benefit is up to 50% of the primary insurance amount, but it can be reduced based on the age of the spouse when they file. The spouse can file as early as age 62, and assuming a full retirement age of age 67, if they file at age 62, the spouse's benefit will be 32.5% of the primary insurance amount. If they wait until age 67, then it's 50%. One thing to note here is that we'll never go over 50%, so there's no need for the spouse to wait beyond their own full retirement age to try to get a bigger benefit, because it caps at 50% at full retirement age.
All right, great. There's some really great conversation going on in the chat box, which is really nice. Many of you that attend this live often are getting to know each other and are having really nice Social Security conversation in the chat box. That's really nice to see. All right, Bill has a question that he has emailed in. He's asking, did Senator Rick Scott propose allowing people to receive Social Security while continuing to work? What are the odds that that passes? And how long could it take to become law? The proposal appears to eliminate the earnings test for people collecting before full retirement age.
Yes, he did. So Senator Rick Scott did propose that. The I've always, there are two or three things. Well, there are quite a few things in Social Security I've questioned over the years, simply because a different stroke of the pen by someone would have changed the direction of things. But the earnings test, to me, the earnings test to me seems like something that could have two arguments for and against. The argument against the earnings test is that people, when they approach approach retirement age, they actually, their odds of staying employed start to go down. So if someone is able to stay employed, then we don't want to, or people shouldn't be in a position where they have to make a choice between staying employed and claiming Social Security. On the one hand, you have someone who's beat the odds and they didn't get laid off, or they're healthy and maybe they love their job, and so the artificial constraint of having to make a choice seems to me like one that should be deeply considered. On the flip side, if someone has full income and they can afford to not claim Social Security, and the trust fund doesn't have the pressure on it, or has a little less pressure on it, then I can also see the argument not having, or I can actually see the argument for having a test. On balance, I think it's unlikely to make it through, to be completely candid, simply because, going back to what we talked about before, there are a lot of things that politicians do that they know aren't going to work, but they do them because they want to be seen to be doing something, and they want to be casting a vote for or against something, even though they know what the odds are. If you're in the state of Florida, you're in the state of New York, for example, and you're a Republican, then you know that your vote isn't going to actually determine what the electoral college is going to choose for New York. It's going to choose it's going to sway blue. The reverse in Florida. But I would also, but people, it's symbolic. The same thing would be true with senators and congressmen, congresspeople. Their votes, they know beforehand that it's not going to mean a change in the outcome, but their constituency expects them to vote a certain way. So this is very likely. I don't think it's going to make it through, but I also think that it's not a bad idea. I just think that there's enough opposition to it that it's unlikely. And but someone who proposes it will send out the email saying, I propose this, I voted for it, but unfortunately it's just not me. I have to be part of 100 votes. And so I think it's unlikely, but yes, the answer to your question is Rick Scott did propose it.
All right, Bradley has a question. I'm 63 and won't turn 65 until December 2027. Is it too early to contact Chapter Medicare now, or should I start planning?
First of all, thank you for the plug. We love Chapter. It is too early to call them, unless you just want to get some information. They're always happy to talk. And in fact, I made a comment on last week's live stream. I met with something like 50 or 75 of their advisors a couple of weeks ago at a gathering they had. I wanted to make sure that I went there and I shook as many hands as possible. So when it does come time for you to call, first of all, tell them Jeff Schmidt sent you, but also they know, most of them know me personally, because I talked to, and I think I lost my voice that day. Talked to most of them one-on-one. It was a great outcome. Really, I really enjoyed it. And one thing that came through Chapter and the crew there is they really care. They really care. The hiring process at Chapter, I got to say, I don't know what the screening process is, but there wasn't anybody that I talked to that I felt weird about. I thought they all said the right things. How can we do better? What can we do? We want to serve. It was a good outcome, but you shouldn't really. You could call them, but maybe wait until you're about 3 months out or 4 months out before you give them a call.
All right. So while we're on Medicare, there is a question in the chat box for that. Are we going to wait for next week, or can we take one?
Yeah, throw it. Let's give it a go. And if it's too difficult, I'll pass it to Ari next week.
Okay. So from Jeff Be Kind, when it comes to the 12-month trial rates for Medicare, can I switch from one plan N to another, or just go to an Advantage plan or Plan G?
I think we're going to save that one for Ari. I don't know about switching from plan N to plan N. I think, and the reason is because all plan Ns pay the same, and so the payout isn't going to be different. A plan N is a plan N in terms of the actual coverage. But why don't we let Ari answer that one next week, when he can actually give you a little bit more detail as to why that's the case.
Okay. And so Jeff, I will put that at the top of the list. This is for Jeff Be Kind, for next week when Ari is on. So we'll ask your question first, but he does want to know that when you were at meeting with Chapter in person, did you get to meet Dr. Ed Weir?
I think that it's probably appropriate for me to not talk about who else was there, and so if that's it's a question maybe you should ask Ed on his live stream. He has his at 6 o'clock on Monday through Friday.
All right. So next is from Kiss Greatest Fan. I'm 65 and plan to get married and plan to have my wife collect my benefit due to her benefit being so low. Is there any time constraints that Social Security has for that?
Sorry, would you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes, I am 65 and plan to get married and plan to have my wife collect my benefit due to her benefit being so low. Is there any time constraints that Social Security has for that?
So the question, if I understand it right, is someone's collecting their own Social Security benefit and they want to know if their spouse can collect the spousal benefit at the same time. Is that the question?
Yes, they're getting married. They're not currently married, getting married, and want their wife to collect benefit because hers is so low.
Yep. Well, they have to be married for a year, and then after they've been married for a year, then she's free to collect the spousal benefit.
Okay. All right, great. So we're going to move on to Julie's question. Can you explain how required minimum distributions can trigger higher IRMA premiums 2 years later?
Sure. So the RMDs nobody likes RMDs. First of all, there isn't a situation where RMDs are people don't say, oh gee, I love RMDs. It's the government's way of making sure that they get paid tax on your 401k or your IRA. And so what do? They say, you know what, at a certain age, we're going to require you to take money out, or we're going to penalize you, and we're going to make it a big one. And so people take out required minimum distributions. Usually for this crew, it's going to be 73 for most of you. If you were born in 1960 or later, it's age 75. What happens when you take out an RMD is it's a taxable event. It's just like taking money out of your 401k or your IRA. And if you've been saving a lot of money in your 401k, your IRA, it's going to be a big number. And that number becomes part of your modified adjusted gross income, and your modified adjusted gross income is what determines IRMA surcharges. And if, let's just say you're a big earner, it's very easy to blow through the modified adjusted gross income levels, especially if you've been saving in your 401k for a while. In 2026, it's $109,000 of modified adjusted gross income, and for a single, and 218 if you're married. And so it can trigger it, but you have to blow through those thresholds.
All right. For anyone that was looking to collect Ari's book, It's Not That Complicated About Medicare, I have put the link in the chat box. The first time I put it in there appeared to be, it was missing one letter. So I have re-put that in there. So it is currently in there. And then you want to type Ari's book. Okay, next question is Lou from White Plains, New York. My wife and I are both 67. I retired in August 2025 after earning about $410,000 annually. We now live on Social Security, retirement withdrawals, 2 small pensions, and around $170,000 in income. My wife hasn't worked in over 5 years. Is now a good time to file an IRMA appeal using lower income estimates? And is online or in-person filing better?
I think so. First of all, let's talk about what IRMA appeals are. They are the least used and most regrettable loss way to save yourself from paying IRMA surcharges. And there are several events that you can actually file an appeal on. And I don't know the statistics, but it's a huge number of people that could have filed, could have gotten an exception and didn't do it simply because they didn't do it. You need to fill out a form. You can do it online. You can do it on paper, but you need to fill out a form and send the form in and explain why you believe that the appeal is valid. But back to the IRMA surcharge point, if you think that you fall into one of the categories, then you should definitely appeal. And most people don't. And it costs a lot of money. The thing about IRMA surcharges, and it boggles my mind. So you think about when you pay taxes and you go from one tax bracket to the next, once you cross that threshold, you don't pay the higher tax on everything. You just pay the higher tax on the difference. IRMA is different. Once you cross that threshold, you don't pay the lower IRMA penalty on the first amount and the higher penalty on the next little bit. You pay it on everything. And so it is an expensive outcome that if you can avoid it, you definitely should. And so definitely appeal it. The worst I can say is no, to be frank.
All right. Mike D put into the chat box, if 2 people get married after they both start collecting Social Security, one of them passes, can the surviving spouse claim the higher payout?
If they've been married for 9 months or longer, usually there are some rules about remarrying, but if the survivor hasn't remarried, usually yes.
Okay, and Stephen from Bohemia is asking, I started Social Security in January and am still working while paying down my children's student loans. Can I pause Social Security and should I be worried about IRMA?
I suppose that depends on how much you make or how much you earned 2 years ago. IRMA starts for most people at age 65, and that would be based on what you were earning at age 63. It's a 24-month look back. And so if in 2026, for example, you're single, let's say, and you earn more than $109,000 of modified adjusted gross income, or if you're married, more than $218,000, you should be worried about it. I would say that pausing Social Security is a way to reduce it, I suppose. if you're close to the thresholds, you do have 12 months to pause at the beginning and basically reset back to the way you were before, but you need to return everything that they've given you, including the money that they've taken out for any Part B premiums. So you need to return it all. And so that's something to consider. It's May, and if you start in January, you're within the 12-month window, but you need to return January, February, March, April, and May, 5 months worth of what you received. But if you're going to blow through either the earnings test or you've calculated your IRMAA surcharge and it's untenable, it's something to consider.
All right. We are at the top of the hour. Frank Castle, you might want to send your question in to Jeff directly as well. It's a disability one. And last question we'll throw in, Squibby Doo. Can you explain more about the form to fill out to adjust the 2-year look back? Can that be filed anytime, trying to decide what month to retire?
So this is an IRMAA question, and the form basically is one that you fill out to get exempt from the IRMAA surcharge. As soon as you know when you're taking, most people know when they're going to take Medicare. It's not really one of those optional things. If you don't have creditable insurance and you're 65, in most circumstances you need to start Medicare. And in that instance, and this is why it's so difficult, because in that instance, because you don't have a choice, you could be faced with IRMAA surcharges, and if you wait, you could be faced with late enrollment penalties, and the amount is forever. So once you start paying that Part B increase, the penalty, you can't undo it. So it's important to make sure that you enroll in Medicare on time. You don't delay, because the amount that you would save in IRMAA surcharges in 1 year, because it's a 1-year event, I can't imagine a way that you would calculate it, and that actually is a better outcome for you than a permanent increase in your Medicare Part B premium.
All right, we are past the top of the hour. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your great questions. And we still have more to bring back next time from the emailed questions as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jeff.
Gang, so thanks again for joining us. It's 8:03 here in New York. And so for those of you on the East Coast, it's 8:03 your time. I always appreciate the fact that people are staying late to listen to what we have to say. It means a lot to us. Jill, thank you so much for your expert guidance. Glad to see that you're back in the office there and not in the gym.
Yes.
I wonder if that gym was actually, was the gym one of those fake backgrounds? If the office?
No, it actually was not. It was the only place I could really kind of set up a little office space. So yeah, I'm glad to be back in my office.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you back with the normal background. Everybody, I will see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. And we look forward to being of service to you then. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Bye all.